The 7 levels of Wolverine's claws explained. Level 1. Basics. Bone claws. Long before Adamantium, before Weapon X, before the metal that defined him, Logan's claws existed as bone, natural, organic, part of his mutation from the moment his powers first manifested as a terrified boy watching his father's murder. That traumatic awakening revealed claws extending from between his knuckles, jagged and unrefined, but lethally effective nonetheless. These weren't additions grafted onto him by science. They were him. Bone claws cut differently than their metal successors. Sharper than ordinary human bone by an order of magnitude, they could puncture flesh, tear through muscle, and fracture lighter materials without difficulty. Wood splintered, leather split. Human bodies yielded immediately, yet limitations surfaced quickly against hardened targets. Reinforced steel resisted penetration. Dense armor deflected strikes. Prolonged combat risked fractures that even his healing factor needed time to mend. The claws could break, and breaking them hurt. What made bone claws dangerous wasn't raw cutting power. It was unpredictability combined with regeneration. Logan could fight recklessly because damaged claws regrew. Snap one off mid-combat, and his healing factor replaced it within hours. That regenerative cycle created psychological pressure opponents couldn't match. He could afford mistakes. They couldn't. Every encounter became a war of attrition where Logan's willingness to sacrifice his own weapons turned desperation into advantage. Still, bone represented his most vulnerable state. Without Adamantium's reinforcement, his claws functioned as extensions of a body that remained fundamentally mortal in construction. Enhanced? Yes. Superhuman? Absolutely. But breakable. The streets didn't fear bone claws the way they feared what came later. They respected the danger without feeling outmatched. That distinction mattered when reputation determined survival. Level 2. Standard. Bat claws. The Amalgam universe produced strange fusions, but few matched the calculated lethality of Dark Claw. When Logan Wayne's parents died, 2 separate tragedies merged into one origin. Sent to Canada, exposed to Weapon X, and driven by vengeance that combined Wayne discipline with Howlett ferocity, Dark Claw became something neither universe anticipated. His claws retained Adamantium's indestructibility while incorporating design elements that maximized stealth and intimidation. Bat claws functioned identically to standard Adamantium in cutting power, but presentation changed everything. The cowl's batwing design extended conceptually to the claws themselves, creating visual continuity that weaponized fear before strikes landed. Criminals didn't just see blades, they saw predators' natural weapons merged with calculated urban warfare tactics. That psychological edge reduced resistance before fights began. What separated Bat claws from pure Wolverine? Claws was restraint. Logan Wayne operated under a code that prevented killing, except in extremis. The claws became tools for disabling rather than executing. Tendons severed cleanly, weapons destroyed without touching wielders. Escapes facilitated through structural demolition instead of body counts. That discipline required constant control most Logans never developed. Holding back when rage demanded release became the true test. Amalgamation created interesting tactical advantages. Wayne's detective work identified vulnerabilities claws could exploit surgically. Howlett's combat instincts ensured those opportunities never went unused. The combination produced a fighter who struck with precision Logan often abandoned and brutality Bruce rarely embraced. Criminals adapted slowly because patterns kept shifting between calculated and feral. Yet Bat claws remained limited by their wielder's humanity. Dark Claw operated without backup healing factor enhancements beyond standard. Adamantium bonding. Injuries accumulated. Fatigue mattered. The claws themselves never dulled, but the man behind them could be worn down through sustained conflict. New Gotham's underworld learned quickly that outlasting him was possible if they survived initial contact. Level 3. Enhanced. Diamond claws. Infinity War's collapsed realities into combinations nobody predicted. Diamond Patch emerged from that cosmic restructuring as a fusion of Wolverine and Emma Frost, creating a being whose claws transcended mere physical cutting. Adamantium merged with Emma's secondary mutation, produced blades that maintained metal's indestructibility while gaining crystalline properties that shouldn't coexist. The claws looked different. Where Adamantium reflected dully, Diamond structure refracted light into sharp angles that disoriented before contact. Edges achieved molecular sharpness impossible for standard metal. Strikes that would normally crush instead sliced at angles that defied conventional physics. The hardness exceeded even Adamantium under specific conditions, allowing penetration of materials his base claws struggled against. What elevated Diamond claws beyond physical threat was telepathic integration. When Diamond Patch's claws pierced targets, skin contact initiated immediate psychic connection. Thoughts became accessible. Memories surfaced involuntarily. Lies collapsed under scrutiny that bypassed verbal communication entirely. He could read minds through stabbing, conditioning, which transformed interrogation into something simultaneously efficient and horrifying. That telepathic component created combat advantages no pure physical weapon offered. Diamond Patch fought with perfect information. Opponents' next moves surfaced in their thoughts before muscles contracted. Feints failed because intent preceded action. Group tactics unraveled as he absorbed battle plans from the first person he tagged. The claws became psychic antennas that turned every strike into intelligence gathering. Limitations emerged from the fusion's instability. Diamond Patch existed as a reality warp, not natural evolution. His powers fluctuated based on cosmic conditions beyond control. Sometimes the telepathy functioned flawlessly. Other times it faded completely, leaving only enhanced physical claws. That unreliability prevented full tactical integration since he couldn't guarantee capabilities would persist through extended engagements. Venom claws. Symbiote infection changed everything about how Wolverine's claws functioned. Whether through direct bonding during Venom War or Jimmy Hudson's poison transformation, the merger of alien biology with mutant weaponry produced adaptable killing tools that evolved mid-combat. The claws retained their core structure while gaining properties that shifted based on tactical needs and host emotional state. Black tendrils wound around adamantium or bone, creating organic sheaths that extended reach unpredictably. Standard 6-inch claws could suddenly project additional length through symbiote material flowing outward. Enemies adapted to known ranges found themselves impaled from distances they'd calculated as safe. That fluidity broke conventional spacing assumptions that governed melee combat. Shape-shifting capabilities extended beyond length. The symbiote could thicken claws for crushing strikes or flatten them into blades for increased cutting surface. Serrated edges appeared spontaneously when sawing through resistant materials became necessary. Some iterations demonstrated the ability to launch symbiote claws as projectiles, firing additional blades while retaining the originals. Ammunition limitations disappeared when weapons regenerated from living tissue. Poison's variant introduced predatorial dominance over other symbiotes. His claws carried infection that prevented regeneration in symbiote targets specifically. Wounds inflicted on other Clintar hosts remained open despite their healing. Factors creating permanent damage normal attacks couldn't achieve. That advantage made him uniquely dangerous during events where symbiote armies proliferated. The seventh claw changed everything. Jimmy Hudson's symbiote tongue, when manifested as a prehensile stabbing weapon, added an attack vector opponents couldn't anticipate. 6 claws demanded attention and counter-positioning. The tongue struck from angles that made defensive stances irrelevant. Stabbing someone through the face while claws occupied their hands created openings no purely physical fighter could exploit. Intimacy of tongue-based attacks added psychological trauma that lingered beyond physical injury. Control remained the constant struggle. Symbiotes amplified aggression, feeding on rage that Wolverine variants already struggled to contain. Berserker states intensified into uncontrollable frenzies where friend-foe distinction collapsed. The claws became more dangerous but less precise, effective against everything in range regardless of allegiance. That lack of discrimination made Venom claws powerful but unreliable for any mission requiring restraint. Level 4, Supernatural. Classic adamantium-coated claws. Weapon X didn't improve Wolverine. It traumatized him while making his natural weapons indestructible. The process of bonding adamantium to his skeleton transformed bone claws into something that redefined what melee weapons could achieve. Heated to liquefaction, poured onto organic material, fused at molecular level while he screamed, the procedure turned mutation into legend. Indestructibility meant permanence. Bone claws could break and regrow. Adamantium never dulled, never chipped, never bent beyond recovery. Every substance in the Marvel universe had a breaking point. These didn't. They cut through steel like tissue, parted concrete without resistance, and turned Wolverine into a fighter who could attack without concern for weapon integrity. Defensive positions failed because he simply carved through them. The weight changed him. 100 pounds of metal distributed across his skeleton altered movement patterns, muscle development, and combat style. He hit harder because strikes carried more mass. Speed decreased slightly, but impact increased dramatically. Enemies expecting his pre-adamantium quickness found themselves facing someone who traded velocity for inevitability. When Wolverine's claws reached their target, momentum carried consequences. Heat conduction became relevant unexpectedly. Adamantium transferred temperature efficiently, which created tactical options bone couldn't match. Superheated claws cauterized while cutting. Flash-frozen metal caused cold damage alongside penetration. The material's properties allowed augmentation through external energy sources that enhanced lethality without modifying the claws themselves. What made classic adamantium claws supernatural rather than merely enhanced was their complete integration with his healing factor. The metal poisoned him constantly. His regeneration generation fought adamantium toxicity every second of every day, forcing his mutation to work overdrive perpetually. That strain paradoxically made his healing factor stronger through constant exercise. He survived damage that would kill other healing factor users because his body never stopped practicing regeneration. Reputation amplified their effectiveness beyond pure capability. The sound of adamantium sliding through flesh carried psychological weight. Opponents who'd faced bladed weapons before recognized those claws operated differently. Parrying failed. Blocking proved futile. Survival depended on evasion because engagement meant injury. That certainty changed how enemies fought, forcing retreat before exchanges concluded. Fear became a weapon separate from the claws themselves. Red claws, Midnight Sun's claws. When Tony Stark's Sorcerer Supreme variant forged armor for the Midnight Suns, Wolverine received an upgrade that merged magic with mutation in ways he'd never experienced. The extra-dimensional armor transformed his adamantium claws into conduits for mystical energy, coating them in crimson light that indicated power beyond physical cutting. These weren't just stronger claws, they were claws that had transcended material limitation. The color shift signified functional changes. Red energy allowed penetration of supernatural defenses that laughed at adamantium. Demons who shrugged off metal blades found themselves vulnerable to strikes infused with dimensional magic. Incorporeal entities that normally phased through physical attacks discovered the hard way that these claws existed partially outside conventional reality. Ghost fighting became possible without requiring separate enchantments or borrowed powers. Enhanced durability appeared immediately. Wolverine tested the claws against rock monsters whose bodies resisted standard adamantium. The red-coated blades sliced through effortlessly, parting stone that should have dulled or deflected normal strikes. He noted the extra pop himself, acknowledging power increase that impressed someone who'd wielded various claw upgrades throughout his career. Coming from Logan, that admission carried weight. The armor's integration mattered as much as the claws themselves. Red energy flowed from extra-dimensional power sources through the suit before reaching the claws, creating a complete system rather than isolated augmentation. Damage to the armor disrupted claw enhancement. Maintaining the connection required staying within specific dimensional boundaries where the magic functioned properly. Step outside those limits, and power faded back to baseline adamantium. What distinguished Red Claws from other mystical upgrades was temporary permanence. Unlike borrowed powers that vanished after single battles, the Midnight Sun's armor could be re-equipped. Wolverine gained reproducible access to supernatural cutting power without permanently altering his mutation. That flexibility let him choose when to operate at enhanced levels versus maintaining his standard capabilities for situations where magic drew unwanted attention. Level 5. Mystical. Hot Claws. Resurrection changed Wolverine in ways he didn't understand initially. When Persephone brought him back from death, his healing factor surged beyond previous limits, overclocked by the revival process. That excess energy needed release. It found an outlet through his adamantium skeleton, specifically through the claws, manifesting as superheated metal that glowed white-hot during deployment. The heat wasn't metaphorical. His claws reached temperatures that caused air to shimmer and skin to sear on proximity alone. Fully extended, they radiated enough thermal energy to ignite flammable materials within inches. Flesh cauterized instantly upon contact, preventing bleeding while maximizing pain. Metal softened before the softened. Claws even reached it, allowing penetration of hardened steel that normally resisted adamantium's edge. What made Hot Claws mystical rather than purely physical was their connection to life force. The heat derived from his healing factor burning too intensely, converting regenerative energy into thermal output. Each activation drained his healing reserves noticeably. Injuries sustained while the claws burned hot took longer to repair. He could superheat the claws or heal rapidly, but not both simultaneously at full capacity. Strategic applications emerged quickly. Wolverine could burn through restraints without needing cutting motions. Heat alone melted bindings given sufficient time. Against regenerating opponents, cauterization prevented immediate wound closure, buying crucial seconds in fights where healing factor competed against healing factor. The psychological impact of flaming claws also created hesitation enemies didn't display against standard adamantium. Limitations proved significant. Hot Claws exhausted him faster than normal combat. Extended activation risked burning out his healing factor temporarily, leaving him vulnerable in ways he hadn't experienced since before Weapon X. The power also lacked fine control. Claws were either blazing hot or standard temperature, with no middle settings for tactical variation. That binary nature reduced versatility in situations requiring measured response rather than maximum output. The ability faded mysteriously after his Krakoan resurrection. New body, old powers, but Hot Claws vanished from his arsenal without explanation. Whether Persephone's modifications failed to transfer or the Krakoan resurrection protocols standardized him back to baseline remained unclear. Wolverine didn't mourn the loss extensively. The power had been useful but dangerous, more likely to harm him through overuse than solve problems other approaches couldn't handle. Psionic Claws. Jean Grey created them first, during AXE. Judgment Day, facing the celestial progenitor, she manifested 6 psychic blades extending from her knuckles in deliberate homage to Logan. Pure psionic energy shaped into claw configuration, combining Psylocke's signature technique with Wolverine's iconic weaponry. The synthesis demonstrated that claws weren't necessarily physical objects, but could exist as thought-given form. These claws cut minds and matter simultaneously. Physical targets experienced normal penetration as telekinetic force sharp enough to pierce flesh and bone. Psychic targets suffered direct mental trauma, their consciousness shredded by constructs designed specifically to wound thoughts. The dual-layer threat made blocking impossible: defend the body and leave the mind vulnerable, or shield mentally while remaining physically exposed. Jean's version drew from Omega-level power reserves that dwarfed normal telepathic ability. Each claw represented focused totality of her combined telepathic and telekinetic strength compressed into blade form. Against the progenitor, she intended those claws to penetrate a celestial's core consciousness, cutting through barriers that stopped conventional attacks. Only interruption prevented full demonstration of their destructive potential. Wild Thing, Wolverine's daughter from the MC2 universe, developed her own psionic claw variation through inherited mutation. Her version manifested as psychic energy that could toggle between intangible and solid states. Enemies felt phantom claws slicing through their minds, experiencing the pain and damage without corresponding physical wounds. Then she'd solidify them mid-strike, converting psychic assault into material penetration without warning. The versatility of psionic claws exceeded physical variants in specific applications. They ignored conventional armor completely, since thoughts couldn't be blocked by steel. Regeneration meant nothing against wounds that existed primarily as mental trauma rather than tissue damage. Opponents who'd adapted to fight Wolverine through his predictable physical patterns found themselves completely unprepared for attacks that struck consciousness directly. Control determined effectiveness more than raw power. Jean wielded psionic claws with surgical precision born from decades manipulating psychic energy. Less experienced users like Teenage Jean created them crudely, effective but imprecise. The mental discipline required to maintain claw shape while using them in combat proved challenging even for trained telepaths. Distraction caused them to flicker or dissolve completely. Level 6. Divine. Fire Claws, Ghost Rider. When Wolverine became Helverine, his claws gained something that transcended heat. They gained hellfire. The Bagra Ghoul demon's possession merged Logan with Ghost Rider's supernatural essence, transforming Adamantium into conduits for flames that burned souls alongside flesh. These weren't hot claws operating at higher temperature. These were weapons infused with divine punishment itself. Hellfire functions differently than normal combustion. It burns without requiring oxygen, ignites underwater, and consumes victims based on guilt rather than physical vulnerability. Wolverine's claws, coated in those cosmic flames, could incinerate demons who shrugged off conventional fire. Spirits who normally phased through physical matter discovered hellfire occupied both material and spiritual planes simultaneously, making evasion impossible. The visual transformation completed the psychological assault. White skull where his head should be, chains wrapping his torso, and claws blazing with infernal light. Helverine looked like vengeance incarnate. Criminals who'd faced normal Wolverine without flinching broke and ran when the flaming skull approached. Even allies hesitated before engaging, uncertain whether Logan retained enough control to distinguish friend from foe. Combat applications expanded beyond simple cutting. Hellfire claws could exorcise demons through stabbing, burning, possessing entities out of host bodies without killing the victim. Logan used this technique on Johnny Blaze himself, slicing into Ghost Rider to excise demonic infection that conventional methods couldn't reach. The precision required using hellfire as a scalpel rather than weapon demonstrated skill that shouldn't exist in someone possessed by a murder demon. The trade-off devastated Logan's autonomy. Bagra Ghoul didn't grant powers. It seized control. Helverine operated as a puppet most of the time, directed by demonic intelligence that viewed mutants as artistic materials rather than living beings. When Logan surfaced briefly, he wielded the claws with full awareness of their terrible power. When the demon drove, those same claws hunted mutants indiscriminately, fulfilling prophecies of extinction from the one person X-Men had trusted most. Temporary bonding with Ghost Rider's spirit of vengeance provided similar hellfire claws without demonic possession. Johnny Blaze could lend his power deliberately, allowing Wolverine to channel hellfire through Adamantium for specific battles. That version gave Logan control while maintaining supernatural cutting ability. The flames burned purer, focused on punishing genuine guilt rather than satisfying artistic sadism. The ethical implications troubled everyone involved. Hellfire judged victims before killing them, burning hotter against those who deserved punishment. When Wolverine wielded it, that divine judgment ran through his moral compass first. Criminals who felt the flames knew Logan had evaluated their souls and found them wanting. That certainty, that the pain came from justified vengeance rather than random violence, made Helverine's attacks psychologically devastating in ways physical torture never achieved. Odin Blessed Claws. Fear itself pushed Earth to the brink. The serpent's worthy overwhelmed conventional heroes easily, forcing Tony Stark to petition Odin directly. The Allfather agreed to bless weapons forged from Uru, the same mystical metal composing Mjolnir. Wolverine received armor and claws enchanted with divine fire burning at the heat of Nidavelir's forge, transforming him temporarily into an Asgardian-level warrior. The visual spectacle rivaled anything Wolverine had experienced. His body glowed like living magma, rocky exoskeleton jutting from his frame at sharp angles. The claws burned bright orange, radiating heat that melted the ground where he stood. Crows fell from the sky when they flew too close. Metal warped in his grip. The Uru enhancement didn't just make him stronger, it made him elemental. Combat effectiveness increased dramatically. Wolverine defeated Nurkod, one of Serpent's most powerful worthy, through sustained assault that his normal claws couldn't have maintained. The Odin-blessed claws cut through enchanted armor that laughed at Adamantium, their divine fire, disrupting magical protection specifically. Against supernatural foes, the upgrade proved essential rather than optional. The transformation affected more than combat capability. Uru metal connected wielders to Asgardian power sources, drawing strength from the same cosmic wells that fueled Thor's might. Wolverine operated on borrowed divinity, accessing power levels his mutation alone never approached. Stamina increased, durability multiplied. His healing factor, already formidable, accelerated further when backed by Odin's blessing. Limitations came from temporary access. The Uru weapons existed for one battle, forged specifically to counter the Serpent's army. After victory, Odin reclaimed the metal, melting it back down in Svartalfheim. Wolverine returned to standard adamantium without permanent enhancement. That single-use nature prevented exploitation. Divine power couldn't become a crutch he relied on perpetually. The experience proved Wolverine could wield godly power without losing himself. Lesser warriors might have been overwhelmed by Odin-blessed enhancement, consumed by strength beyond mortal comprehension. Logan integrated it smoothly, maintaining tactical awareness and restraint despite operating at cosmic levels. That discipline impressed Thor himself, earning respect from someone who'd watched countless mortals fail under similar blessings. Level 7. Cosmic. Phoenix Claws. Old Man Phoenix represented Wolverine's ultimate evolution. When his timeline's humanity died and the Phoenix Force sought a new host, it chose Logan. Not Jean, not a younger mutant, an elderly warrior who'd outlived everything he loved and everyone he'd fought beside. The cosmic entity bonded with the last man standing, transforming his adamantium claws into weapons that burned with the fire of creation and destruction itself. Phoenix Fire operates at the edge of reality. It consumes what doesn't work, burning away evolutionary dead ends to make room for new growth. When channeled through Wolverine's claws, that cosmic flame could incinerate almost anything instantly. Demons, gods, celestials, nothing remained immune. The slashes carried destructive potential that bypassed conventional durability entirely. Unmade targets at molecular and spiritual levels simultaneously. The flames looked different than Hellfire or Odin-blessed heat. Phoenix Fire manifested as reality-warping orange and gold that seemed to burn in dimensions observers couldn't fully perceive. When Old Man Phoenix extended his claws, the flames wrapped around adamantium without consuming it, creating corona effects that suggested the metal itself had achieved transcendence. Light bent strangely around them, space warped subtly in their presence. Power scaling became absurd. Old Man Phoenix traveled through time effortlessly, popping across eons to intervene in events that shaped cosmic history. He fought Dr. Doom after Victor had absorbed the powers of Iron Fist, Ghost Rider, Starbrand, and Sorcerer Supreme simultaneously. That battle occurred inside Earth's core and lasted years. Phoenix claws matched god-killing combinations without disadvantage, proving their cosmic tier status beyond question. The Phoenix refused to let Logan kill Loki because it remembered loving him in ages past. That emotional override demonstrated the Force maintained autonomy even while bonded. Old Man Phoenix operated as partnership between warrior and cosmic entity, neither completely controlling the other. The claws reflected both influences. Logan's tactical precision merged with Phoenix's reality-breaking power. Tactical applications transcended combat. Phoenix Wolverine used his claws for gardening in the far future, aerating soil at the end of time to grow new life. The same weapons that unmade Doom Supreme planted seeds in hope of rebirth. That duality, destruction and creation unified, captured the Phoenix Force's essential nature. The claws could end. The claws, universes, or start them depending on Logan's intent. The weight of cosmic awareness changed him. Old Man Phoenix operated with eons of perspective, understanding that violence was cyclical and temporary. His claws remained as sharp as ever, but he wielded them with restraint that came from watching countless civilizations rise and fall. Every strike carried the knowledge that destruction was just one half of an endless pattern. When he transferred the Phoenix Force into Mjolnir to help Thor defeat Doom, the claws reverted to standard adamantium. That sacrifice demonstrated Logan's character hadn't changed despite cosmic power. He'd always been willing to give up personal strength to protect others. Phoenix claws were just the ultimate expression of that principle. God-tier power wielded by someone who'd proved he could let it go when necessary. And that's the progression. From bone that could break to cosmic fire that could remake reality, Wolverine's claws evolved alongside the threats he faced. But here's the question worth considering. Which version was most dangerous? The indestructible adamantium that defined him for decades, or the cosmic flames that could burn away existence itself? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more breakdowns like this.